Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. This is the Police Advisory and Review Committee fourth quarter review meeting. My name is Jonathan Haskell. I'm the co-chair of the committee and like to extend a welcome to the committee members, representatives from KPD, as well as all of you from the community. We thank you for joining us. As we get started, I would ask Ms. Leticia Flores if you would, where'd she go? Oh, there you are. I looked right past you. If you would read the mission, vision, and rules of decorum for this meeting. Thank you.
Happy to. The mission of the Police Advisory and Review Committee, Parc, is to provide community members of the City of Knoxville a civilian oversight committee that audits the discipline process, policies, and procedures of the Knoxville Police Department. The purpose of Parc is to strengthen the relationship between community members of the City of Knoxville and the Knoxville Police Department by providing a timely, fair, and objective review of community complaints. Parc also assists community members in navigating the investigative process after filing a complaint with KPD. The following rules of decorum include: those who wish to speak during public forum should sign up by contacting the Parc office ahead of time or by signing up in person prior to the start of the meeting at 6 p.m. All speakers will be given 5 minutes. Please do not use profanity and remember to stay on topic. Those who fail to adhere to those rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note that you may not disrupt a public meeting from the audience. Those who do may be asked to leave. We appreciate everyone's respect for these rules.
Thank you. First up on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes from our quarter 3 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Second. Any questions, discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next up is our Executive Director's report from Jared. Thank you, sir.
If I could figure out how to work this thing. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. During the fourth quarter, the Executive Director of the Knox Police Advisory Committee, Knox Police Advisory Review Committee, actively engaged in efforts to promote transparency, accountability, and community trust. A key highlight was attending the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, or NACOL, as it's referred to, their national conference, where the director participated in workshops and networked with leaders from across the country to gain insights and best practices for strengthening our civilian oversight of law enforcement. And Josie went with me too, so it's not just me. The director also prioritized community engagement by delivering presentations to the East Knoxville Business and Professional Association and the Knoxville Leadership Foundation. These presentations focused on the role of Parc, updates on committee initiatives, and opportunities for community collaboration to enhance public safety and equity. As part of oversight responsibilities, the director attended multiple disciplinary hearings conducted by the KPD. This involvement ensured that the review committee remained informed of internal accountability measures and maintained an impartial perspective on matters concerning officer conduct. The quarter concluded with a celebration of community at the YWCA Phyllis Wheatley Center Christmas party. This event provided an opportunity to build relationships and connect with the young people and their families in a festive, welcoming environment, reinforcing Parc's commitment to meaningful engagement with all members of Knoxville's diverse community. That concludes my report, and I will submit my full report to the board.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the committee? All right. In that case, we will move on to subcommittee reports, and we'll start with the audio-visual report from Ms. Williams.
Namaste, everyone. The audiovisual report can be found in the packet of materials that was provided to you. Of the 0 referral action forms and 4 ops cases reviewed by the Parc, there were 2 cases with documented audio and video recordings based on body-worn cameras and/or the incident taking place in the vicinity of the officer's patrol vehicles and within a recordable range. The Audio-Video Subcommittee submits the following findings for our second quarter review. So if you all will just indulge me here while I read through these. File 1, Ops Case Number 23-2914, awaiting audiovisual. File Number 2, Ops Case Number 23-2912, awaiting audiovisual. File Number 3, Ops Case Number 23-2111, awaiting audiovisual. File Number 4, Ops Case Number 242927, likewise. File Number 5, Ops Case Number 242927, likewise. File Number 6, Ops Case Number 232912, the same. File Number 7, Ops Case Number 23-2912, also awaiting audiovisual. File Number 8, Ops Case Number 24-2947, there was no AV for this case. File Number 9, Ops Case Number 23-2911, the same, no AV for this case. File Number 10, Ops Case Number 23-2921, awaiting AV. File Number 11, Ops Case Number 23-2918, no AV for this case. The same for File Number 12, Ops Case Number 24-2945. File Number 13, Ops Case Number 24-2947, awaiting AV. File Number 14, Ops Case Number 23-2922, awaiting AV. These last two cases that I'll be referencing are awaiting AV as well. File Number 15, Ops Case Number 24-2947, and lastly, Case File 16, Ops Case Number 23-2925. The summary. The KPD's General Order 2.16 Digital Audio/Video Recording Equipment details that officers and vehicles equipped with audiovisual recording equipment shall be in a record mode at all times when there is potential for contact with a person in the community, whether on duty or doing secondary employment. The purpose of digital AV recording equipment is to monitor all contacts with a person in the community in all situations possible. In addition, KPD requires sergeants to review officers' audio and visual footage twice per month at random to ensure that their equipment is operating properly. That concludes the report.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee regarding the AV report? All right. In that case, we'll move on. Ms. Cynthia Dito will read our report on racial profiling.
Thank you. There was 0 alleged racial profiling, bias-based policing cases reviewed by Parc during these quarter reviews. KPD policy and procedure reviewed. General Order 1.41, bias-based policing, number 1, policy. It is the policy of the Knoxville Police Department that we are committed to preserving the peace and maintaining order in the city of Knoxville by practicing bias-free policing and respecting the rights and dignity of all citizens. Number 2, definition. Bias-based profiling, the practice of stopping, detaining, or searching a person based solely upon a common trait or a group that includes but is not limited to their race, color, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, economic status, or any other identifiable group characteristic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion from the committee? Okay. In that case, we'll move on. Mr. Andre Canty will read our operations case review.
Cool. Make sure my mic good? Okay, it's good. All right, cool. So, yeah, the fourth quarter operation report from October, December 2024. So cases reviewed, closed OPS and no referral actions from cases 16, from Parc, Community, anonymous complaints received from via Park office. 7, community anonymous complaints referred to OPS or a captain. 1, total cases received. That includes internal affairs and complaints to Park. 17, total cases pending for quarter, complaint or complaints that are awaiting review by Park upon completion of a KPD or Park investigation. 8, total cases closed for quarter. That's overall numbers of cases reviewed and closed by Park staff. 9, resolution of community complaint cases, Park staff. 6, KPD. KPD contacted the complainant, and the complainant decided not to move forward with the formal investigation, or KPD conducted the investigation and shared their findings with the complainant directly. That's 1. Mediation, Park and KPD. Park staff had met with the complainant and KPD to provide mediation services to resolve issues and concerns. 0. Referrals to appropriate agencies. Park office received a call or calls regarding issues involving other law enforcement departments, and we have 1. Next is the year-to-year comparison operation report. So for 2023, so total cases brought to Park since its inception until now, 2,803. Total cases closed from its inception till now, 2,724. Cases resolved by Park office, 43. Resolved by mediation in Park office, 1. Resolved by KPD, 8. Referrals to appropriate agencies, 12. Total cases pending, 19. Park cases referred to OPS or Captain of the Year, 8. OPS case reviewed by Park or Committee, OPS referral action forms, 30. Back up for last year in 2024. Total cases brought to Park, we have 2,904. Total cases closed, 2,812. Cases resolved by Park office, 76. Resolved mediation between Park office and KPD, 0. Resolved by KPD, 18. Referrals to appropriate agencies, 28. Total cases pending, 15. Park cases referred to OPS or Captain for the year, 19. And then lastly, OPS case reviewed by Park staff or committee, OPS, we have 31.
Thank you, sir. Does the committee have any questions? All right. If not, we will move on to the case matters addressed by the committee. As has already been noted, there were 16 cases reviewed by the committee this quarter. It's my understanding that the committee has submitted questions, and we are still awaiting answers to those questions from the department. I don't know if Assistant Chief Powell, if you have any update on that.
No, we got them today. We did not distribute them till we had not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we were saying, yeah.
My bad.
Okay.
You guys did your job. We just haven't gotten them yet from the committee. So thank you for that. And we will.
But we can open the floor to any questions that the committee has.
Yes. Yeah, we will review those as soon as we get those from Jared. But I would open the floor to the committee if anybody has any questions for the department. All right. Committee business. Jared, do you have anything?
No, I think your co-chair had.
Oh, this is where I can do my thing? Oh, okay.
Do your thing.
All right, thank you. I do have a question. It's not necessarily directly related to Park, but it is in some ways. And so this is my question, and Jared can assist me here. I think a few months back, was there not a 21 CP report that was developed or generated? Well, can anyone share with me its outcome, the status? I think there were some items that KPD was going to be working on into the future. Can anyone? give me an
I can
update?
share a little bit. It was a quite lengthy report. It was multiple pages. can you narrow down what, you're talking about an overall summary review
Yes.
or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and I'm going on memory here, and it's been I've slept a few days in between that report, right? But the one thing that I focused in was on our technology. The technology was kind of older, the RMS system. And since that report that we brought that forward, and then we went into an RFP, and then obviously we've got the Axon contract. So hopefully we've addressed that part. There was other instance on some of our policies that needed reviewing. Since that time, we have set up a policy committee in which we take policies and review over them to see if there's language needs to be changed or if they need updating. Some of our policies, they may, as different committees come along or as we change the way we do business, some of the policies need to be updated. So we looked at some of those as well. Trying to think from memory what else was on there, but it was multiple pages that 21CP had come back with.
Okay, so, once everything has been addressed in that report, will it be presented to the general public, or what is KPD's intent?
Well, our intent was to more or less just to get we knew where the things that we wanted to improve upon, but then we wanted an outside agency to come in and look at us overall and get us a guide point to move forward with. So it will be a long endeavor to fill out and to look over and to get in motion all of the different items that were listed in there. To give you an example, our software, we have multiple forms of software that are in silos. They don't communicate with each other. So when we try to go to pull different data, we have to go here and then we got to check it with this one and check it with that one. So the RMS system, to give you an idea, when we implement it, when we started, it's an 18-month switchover. So even before we can start working on some of the data points that they brought up, it's 18 months before we get the Axon system actually up and running. So it will be a while, and then once we get it up and running, then we'll have to go back to a lot of our policies and adjust them around because a lot of the software won't be used anymore. This one software system will engulf multiple software systems. So that's kind of that's a very rudimentary explanation, but that's kind of what we're looking at. We knew we needed software, better software. Now we've got it. Moving forward, we'll work with it as Axon comes in and trains us, and then we'll develop policies around those as they come in.
So there was no specific deadline for?
No, ma'am, there was
No?
not. No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I had one question that I remembered, and it was about, I'm just noting that one of the cases recently was regarding texting and officers' phones. We've had other cases in the past where things have been posted on social media that was inappropriate. And my question was that, given that the officers are getting younger and that social media is kind of infusing our society, if the police department has created any social media policies in terms of how officers and cadets are responsible for using the tech that's out there.
We do have policy on that. I think the case you were referring to was in this round of cases, and it was a little bit different because it was an admin. It wasn't actually an officer. It was a civilian administration. But we do have policies. Matter of fact, that was one of the policies that we have to continue to update because social media changes. If I'm not mistaken, I think some of that policy had something about MySpace, Nobody has MySpace anymore, so, and was other social media platforms as well. But as they continue to grow, this will be a policy that we'll have to go back to and revisit time to time and update that language in there.
And do officers have KPD provided phones, or are they allowed to use their own phones?
Both.
Both.
So they'll have their own phones, but we do provide a phone. But with that phone, it's very limited in what they can do. They can make calls on it, but as far as, just like our, as you said it, your desk or their workstations, a lot of things are white, is it called whitelisted, I get, or I'm not sure what the word is.
Kind of the exceptions made?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It has to fit in those exception rules. But the phone it's got a block on it where they can, you can't download a game or anything like that. And I can't remember the name of the software that we loaded on it, but that's what it is. But they can carry their personal phone as well.
And are those audited?
Their personal phones? I don't know that we could.
But the work phones?
The work phones are, they're so limited in what they can do. The software that we put on them, it's not like you can go to a Microsoft store and look into them or anything that way. They're very limited what they can do. Basically, what they're used for and what we hope that we can get away with some, but when a citation is written, there's no way, the judge still wanted a signature, and so they were using the phones to do the finger signature that would communicate back to the car. That was their primary use, and then also to read their emails on it as well.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I had a question that just kind of popped up in my head as Letty was speaking. I know that you can't obviously monitor someone's personal phones, but I know that public social media is public, if I'm not mistaken. As far as monitoring officers' behaviors or affiliations, I know upon hire, there's a very diligent and long search to make sure that officers are not part of any sort of groups that would compromise them in the jobs that they need to do. But how often, if at all, is that updated as far as, questioning what groups they may be affiliated with in public space, or, I'm not going to name any specific names, but groups that could be construed as either subversive, racially incendiary, I stopped short of saying hate groups, but they could be considered in a legal setting a hate group or security group, threat group of some sort. Is that an ongoing process? And if so, what are the steps taken to kind of do that work?
Jared, we have updated our social media policy. We've been looking at it on a regular basis since I came with KPD. There are constitutional limitations on what we can do on the personal phones. We do we try to be proactive in recruitment to ask about affiliations and past affiliations with consent. Under certain circumstances, we can look in private phones. Once someone becomes a sworn officer, there's not an ongoing searching of their private phones unless, as you say, they put something into the public domain through social media that comes to our attention, which reflects badly on the city of Knoxville or the police department, in which case we would be aggressive in investigating it as a policy violation. So anything that comes in the public domain, we would take a look at. We also would take a look if someone received a private social media transmission which alarmed them or concerned them and brought it to our attention, then we would take a look at whether we had a constitutional right under those circumstances. That should not be able to occur on a phone that the city has issued. But we do allow people to have personal phones. I think personal phones were used allegedly for the issue you were raising in that case, which we were not able to make a definitive answer about whether it had occurred or not because of restrictions we have in getting into a private phone when we're not giving consent. But it's a long answer, but this is something that we are on top of and always looking for ways to improve our policy to protect the city and the police department.
Yes, sir. May I follow up?
Sure.
With a question? And I understand the limitations of private phones versus work-related phones, but what I was speaking more of are posts in the public domain on social media sites saying, I'm an ex-member of this group and I'm glad that they did this particular act that may or may not fall within the confines of legal behavior or may not fall within the confines of threatening protected classes of people. Is there any sort of remedy or anything that can be done, and I'm not going to go so far as say punishment, but awareness to that officer that, hey, that's unacceptable behavior
Yes.
within, and
We-
if so, then is there a general monitoring of social media, public social media, not private phones and things of that nature, but public social media of officers? Is there a policy that speaks to that, or is that something we need to catch up to with the constant sort of transformation of what social media is becoming?
Jared, I don't think we have set up a regular monitoring program. If something is put into the public domain, as you say, that's of concern, then we do have an updated and changed policy. If that's material that reflects, it's harmful to the city of Knoxville and the Knoxville Police Department because it reflects badly on the city or the police department and harms us in executing our mission, then our policies allow us to take action, and we would. But in terms of just, hey, we're going to have somebody regularly pick random phones and audit or whatever, we're not going to do that, or social media. But, you know, somebody might bring something like that to your office, for example, and if you send it over to me, Lieutenant Wilson, then we'd be all over it for sure. And Chief Noel is very interested in being active against anything like that. I'll send you, Jared, I'll send you the most recent edition of our policy with
I appreciate that.
and some support for the changes we made, which I think are constitutional and would be allowed in terms of being aggressive on something like that.
And clearly, this is not a contentious conversation between you and I.
No, but it's a good question. I don't know if we even have the resources right now to do a real extensive.
My fear is this. There are many people, there was an FBI report that came out several years ago that spoke about the infiltration of local police departments by members of various groups that I would say have less interest in the civil rights and the private rights of certain protected classes of people. My fear is that those people have infiltrated the Knoxville Police Department and are able to fly under the radar of various, I won't say protections, but various lack of diligence that we have in being able to pursue them acting out in the public space. That's my fear.
Yeah.
And I fear that we are falling short of holding them fully accountable for the choices that they're making.
Right.
That's my fear. And I just wanted to share that as maybe a starting point for a conversation about policy changes or policy decisions we can make in the future.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in. I think this predates, Chief Knoll predates your position. It may even predate you, Jared, but there was a really disturbing case I think some of us remember that came before Parc, and it involved social media. And there wasn't any, there wasn't this policy that you're talking about now, so it is heartening. It was really memorable to me, and it was just on point what you're talking about. So I'm glad to hear, at that point in time, we only looked at new officers, we didn't do anything with existing officers, and I'm glad to hear that we're making some changes there, because there are about 2 or 3 cases that I remember, and that's, I mean, at night I remember, and that was one of them. So thank you for making those changes.
Heidi, I can tell from my research into this, and I've spent a lot of time doing it since I've been with the police department. The old way of doing things was to say, this is officers on their private time. They can do whatever they want to, blah, blah. We don't take it that way anymore. We look at anything that is, even if it's opinion, that it harms the mission of the police department or reflects poorly on the city of Knoxville, then my belief is we have the ability and we will investigate that, and it could lead to discipline.
Yeah, and I just wanted to applaud you for those changes.
All right, yeah, this is a good conversation. It's prompted some stuff for me. It's kind of related to what we just talked about, a little bit about the detector and the axon kind of stuff. Whoever can answer. So I know 2 city councils ago it was a lot, but I know it was talked about how with the tech, any kind of racial, I guess a kind of racial a research on how these or racial impact report. That's what I was getting to, about how the technology can can affect some people. Because I know it's like, how do you, like, there's like 2 different camps, right? How do you have the tech that talks to specific safety needs that's really needed, but also how do you also alleviate concerns, for some certain groups or certain communities, right? So how do you have that fine line? And well, I'll get to that. I have another question too, but I think the first thing around just the tech, there's since that meeting, has there been any thoughts around any kind of research about how that tech could or could not, like, impact people in my community, different communities, minorities, stuff like that. So again, and knowing again, it's the trickiness of having the tech to improve you all's needs and operations of KPD, but also to alleviate, any concerns from people about technology, surveillance, all those kind of things. Yeah.
So to be sure I understand your question, are you talking about technology as far as cameras go? Is that what you're referring to, or just the records management system?
I think all dealing with the last I think the $27 million dollars that was approved like last city council meetings ago. That there's a whole thing about that around people
Right.
thinking the surveillance, and somebody mentioned a racial impact report. So I guess any since then, like,
Right.
is it be kind of like thoughts to, because I'm all about community buy-in and like alleviating people's fears around that, right? So I think it's a way, I'll just kind of say maybe it's a way to maybe alleviate, talk to people about what it all entails,
Right.
In a certain setting with with communities, just to alleviate any kind of
Right.
concern that may happen. Yeah.
So unfortunately, there was a lot of misinformation that came out of that meeting. The majority of that whole thing with contract with Axon was just renewing body cams, in-car cameras, and tasers. The only really new thing, well, not really exactly, the only new thing was the RMS and the FUSIS portion of it. There was no cameras in that contract. At one point, we had got something that we were buying drones. That wasn't true. That wasn't in that contract. But the great thing with the RMS packet is the record management system. I'm sorry, I keep using acronyms. The records management system, the greatest part is to allow us to view our data and to do what's basically called very strategic policing. And that's what the chief is really harped on. Instead of going out here and when you've got when you're working with less officers on the street, you've got to find ways to be efficient and to do more. And this record management system will absolutely do that. I could talk for hours. I geek out on all of this technology stuff, right? But I guess I answer that the majority of that contract was just renewing things we already have, and the record management system was really the next biggest ticket. And our old record management system goes back, the last update it got was 2012. And so we are so far behind, and really, as I explained to the chief, it's unfortunate that we just kept kicking the can down the road because they're so expensive, but we had to do something, because the current system we've got in December of this year, they'll no longer back it up or work with it. So we had to do something. They'll maintain it moving as forward but that's all they'll do. So we were forced to do something with it.
Okay, all right, cool.
I hope I answered your question.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I was gonna add, this is great, I do appreciate that. I don't know if there's a way, I don't know if there's a way to like, I don't know, is it executive report? I don't know if it's like some kind of way to state, okay, this is what it is, this is what it isn't, you know, I guess, maybe something on paper for people to say, okay, this is exactly what it is, this is what it
Right.
does, this how, I guess it benefits, right? So I guess something on paper. So again, anxiety is like real high, you know, in a lot of places. And sometimes that's based off of some real fear, right? So like, I don't know if there's a way to, you know, put that kind of stuff, you know, just on paper so everybody can see. Yeah.
So actually, there was, the Axon contract was in that packet and all the details of it, and it was 150 pages, I think. If you've got a cell phone bill and you ever read your cell phone bill, it was kind of like that. The way they broke it down and did the bundles, and maybe that was some of the confusion, but
Right.
it was listed out line by line what we were purchasing and what that did, and how it was bundled with the cameras. The cameras they're going to what's called a Model 4 camera, which the base, which is called a cradle point in the cruiser. The old camera system, it only would incorporate 2 cameras, and now this will incorporate up to 4 cameras. The taser that it talked about, they're upgrading its ability and what it can do. The vehicle cameras inside our cruiser cameras, there were some upgrades there, and so it broke down and spoke of each one. I can actually get you the list of what all the new upgrades are, and it's obviously it's a long read.
Right.
And some of it I don't even understand. I have to contact my computer folks or my technology folks and say, well, what does this actually mean? And
Right.
it's just a step above. Everything was a step above of what we had.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's probably because there's probably a lot for me to read. If there's some executive summary, that's what they say. An executive
Right.
summary. Yeah. So like an executive summary. So like, this is what it is. These are key points. These are key points to it. Maybe
Okay.
like the breakdown.
Yeah.
I think that would, you know, probably help.
Yeah,
You know, people
absolutely.
like
Absolutely.
alleviate some stuff.
I can
yeah.
get that.
Cool.
Sure
Appreciate
can.
it. Appreciate it.
I second that. I think that would be something that would be of great value to the communities who may feel, and I'm trying to make sure I use my words correctly here, who may feel that they're being doing more than being placed on notice, that everything that they're doing is now going to be watched. And so, like I say, I'm trying to use my words carefully.
No, I
here.
understand. I understand.
So if there's a way for this executive summary, something that's less than 150 pages, I mean, you know, I can read 150 pages, but
Right.
it's not my preference.
Right, I understand. I understand.
So, yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, Chief, is that something we possibly could put on our Park page as a link? The executive summary he's speaking about, or?
I'll have to look and see if there even is an executive summary, or if I can pull something together like that. That's why it came from our legal department, that their breakdown or price increase. So I'll have to look, and I know what you're referring to. I've seen those before. It's just the thing is, the contract was so large, I'll have to look and see if there was. And if there isn't, then I can absolutely go to them and see if they can give me an executive summary of what we were getting.
Okay, I think that, yeah, I would greatly appreciate it, and I'll take that upon me and us to coordinate
Okay.
a best way to disseminate that amongst folks. And, because I think that, as you just said, that it was overwhelming. You know, there was a lot of energy in that particular meeting, I'll say it that way. And, sometimes, you know, the facts or the misunderstandings can just be elevated, and then the truth sort of just fizzles out. And so we want to make sure that we always put forward the most accurate information. And I'd be happy to help get that information out through our Parc site.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Another, have you finished, Andre, what you, okay. Okay, so, trying to get the information out, is it my understanding that the various sectors have meetings with the, community?
Yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
correct. The
Is-
districts,
Okay, districts.
commander districts.
Okay. Is there a possibility of maybe, once you've gotten this executive summary together, of maybe having that be part of a meeting? I'm just asking.
I don't think there would be an issue with it. Usually those district commanders, they talk about the issues that's typically come in from community meetings and all that, but if they want to add it on the end, if people want to see it, then I wouldn't see that there'd be a problem with that. I'll pass that along to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great discussion. Our guests tonight are the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And I think we're going to hear from Executive Director Kate Trudell. Is that right? All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
All right, everyone hear me? Thanks so much for letting us join you tonight. I'm Kate Trudell, the Executive Director of the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and Tara Davis, my colleague, is here joining me tonight. She's our Community Relationships Coordinator, and she's much more charismatic and better looking than I am, so I apologize. Her name was on the agenda, and you're getting me because she's a cornerstone of our organization. I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about our work with the committee and the community members in attendance, and then also share some of the progress we've made in collaboration with law enforcement across the region, and specifically in Knoxville. Our organization has been around for about 15 years. We serve 33 counties in East Tennessee, but are based in Knoxville, so the majority of the survivors we're serving and the referrals we're receiving are in the Knoxville area. We have kind of a four-pronged mission to raise overall awareness about trafficking. Obviously, communities can't solve problems that they don't understand and they don't know exist. So trying to raise that community awareness that trafficking is happening in every zip code, in every county, and Knoxville is no exception to that. We also have specialized training and education that we provide for free to professionals, to community members, to different sectors across the community. We are mostly behind our desks, behind a computer, answering emails and phone calls all day long. We're not often out in the community interacting with individuals at a space where they might be identified as a victim of trafficking, say as someone who's working in a travel center or at a hotel front desk or law enforcement doing their job. And so being able to raise that specialized awareness and giving those primary responders the tools to recognize trafficking more effectively, we've seen to really have a direct correlation between that and where our referrals are coming from and where our referrals are increasing. So we found that to be really effective. We also recognize that our organization can't solve this really complex issue alone. So we prioritize collaboration. We host a number of different multidisciplinary teams, both in Knoxville and a couple up in Johnson City. But we have a victim services, survivor services support team, or multidisciplinary team that's meeting. And we also help host a counter-trafficking law enforcement gathering that Knoxville, the Special Crimes Unit, has been actively engaged in and participating in, and we've been really grateful for their involvement and have long appreciated the involvement of folks like Phyllis Tonkin, who were in the early days of our organization, when we were a little baby nonprofit with a hope and a dream, the folks like Phyllis recognized how important this issue was and were really heavily involved in that collaborative space. We also know that survivors need a holistic approach to their healing journey, and so our organization is really committed to providing that individualized care. And we do that through a variety of ways. We have an adult services department and a youth services department. For the folks who come to us who need support and they're over the age of 18, we have a low barrier crisis shelter. There's very limited requirements. They have to be over the age of 18 and identify as female and give us some information that leads us to believe they have experienced trafficking at some point in their history. We don't require a police report or a timestamp or all of the details of their victimization, just something that gives us information that says, yes, this person has likely been a victim of trafficking. And then we err on the side of bringing them into shelter, and we can figure out the rest later. So our emergency receiving center has 6 beds. It's also where our 24/7 hotline operates out of. So we have information on the table in the back here that folks can take if they're interested. It has our 24/7 hotline number on that, and that's a number to call anytime if you've come in contact with a potential victim of trafficking that may need services. You can call that hotline and get our staff 24/7. There's no hard and fast length of stay at our emergency receiving center. It's all individualized based on that specific guest's needs. We have some folks that stay with us for a night or an afternoon and then go on to their next step. Some folks stay longer. For example, during COVID in 2020, we had a guest stay with us for almost 6 months in the ERC, our Emergency Receiving Center, because there wasn't that next step for them during that time. We also have a long-term supportive housing program called Phoenix House that also has 6 beds. It's more focused on a 12-month length of stay. All of our programming is free. There's no cost to the survivor to utilize or engage in the services with us. Our housing programs are free and come with supplemental support like groceries and emergency assistance and access to medication and those types of things. We also have community-based care coordination, so we have case managers that can go out to wherever the client is if they're not in our residential program. We have therapists on staff that, again, can bring that therapy to wherever the client is. It's meant to be mobilized. They don't have to come to our office to see their therapist. We can come to wherever they are. We have also a specialized program for justice-involved survivors. So we have programming in the Bledsoe County Correctional Complex, as well as Knox County Jail and some TDOC day centers. We're providing group programming and individualized support. We also have a specialized therapist that's working with justice-involved survivors. And then for our youth services department, we have that care coordination and specialized therapy. We don't provide housing for children and youth, but can come alongside children and youth and provide that specialized care coordination and therapy. We have a family support services program as well to help parents and caregivers. And then have just a few years ago launched a prevention intervention program, so we're doing psychoeducational programming for children and youth who are at high risk, but have not yet disclosed a victimization. And we've found that to be really effective in preventing that victimization from occurring, or effective in at least building a trusting relationship where then disclosure can happen, and then we can get that individual the supportive services they need. Most all of that is happening in and around Knoxville. We do have some staff that work out of Upper Cumberland and Bledsoe County and in Johnson City, but most of our folks are here. And we are grateful again for the collaboration with law enforcement. We're, in our offices and desks and really rely heavily on law enforcement to be the folks identifying individuals that may need our services. Probably 90+% of the referrals we receive come to us because law enforcement or a child welfare intervention has occurred. And without that, it would be hard for us to provide these services to the individuals that need them. So we're really grateful for that collaboration and are here if any of the committee members or community members need specialized education or know of someone that can use our services. Our information is in the back. And I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have about all of that.
I have a question right over here. You said that you have housing for female identified victims. I have some guesses as to why you didn't mention male identified, but can you speak to that?
Yes, so we have served male and do serve male identifying clients. We can provide emergency housing assistance, but typically that comes in the form of subsidizing some sort of hotel stay. There's very limited specialized human trafficking housing services for males who've experienced trafficking, which is something that lots of us in this field are in, discussion around. If we have housed, in the past, we have housed male identifying guests at our emergency receiving center because they felt that the program that is more female oriented was acceptable to them at that time, and the circumstances were such that that was a safe decision for all folks involved. But for the most part, the male clients that we've served, we've either subsidized housing so that that service is still being offered, but not directly within our emergency receiving center, and then they're able to engage with the other services, if that answers your question.
It does, yes. And do you have off the top of your head what the numbers are, the comparisons?
Yeah, so actually was just looking at this data earlier. So today, last year we had 647 referrals. Of that, we served about 590 folks. So there's a gap between referred and served because not everyone that gets referred to us wants to work with us, and that's their choice. So we track those numbers differently. Out of that 590 folks that we served, 15 were male. So it's a much smaller percentage. And actually, we were just trying to dig into the data earlier today because in years prior, we've tracked this higher. And last year, we only had 5 individuals referred to us that were trans or non-binary. And in previous years, that's been a higher number. So we're kind of looking into maybe the nuances of why that might be. And maybe it's based on a particular collaborative partner that we had a personal relationship with in the community that was identifying those folks that then would refer to us, and maybe there's some changes in that, but we're digging into that a little bit. Yes.
I have a question, and just full transparency, I serve on the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking Board. Just want to be transparent about that. Could you define trafficking for everyone? That's my first question. And the second question is, who is your typical client?
Great questions. So human trafficking is broken out into sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And the definitions for sex trafficking, if the victim is over the age of 18, there's sort of 3 components that need to be in place. So a perpetrator, a trafficker, is using force, fraud, or coercion to induce this commercial sex exchange where there's a third party, a buyer, who is exchanging something of value to have a commercial sex exchange with this victim. And that is a little complicated. Proving force, fraud, or coercion is not as easy as providing email receipts sometimes, so that can be really hard. If the individual being exploited is under the age of 18, that force, fraud, or coercion piece does not need to exist. In Tennessee, if you're a minor, you're too young to consent to sex, so they don't have to prove that force, fraud, or coercion component. For labor trafficking, it's sort of those similar elements of force, fraud, or coercion, forcing someone to perform a labor or service. We see this often in manual labor industries, nail salons, massage parlors. Sometimes there's a dual sex trafficking, labor trafficking victimization happening in like the illicit massage parlor industry where there's some forced labor, like working long hours, they're not receiving their wages, and then also forced to perform sex acts that are providing some commercial income or something of value to the individual facilitating that. It's hard to say what our typical client is that we're serving, other than they're almost all from East Tennessee. They're almost all from the area in which they're victimized. We have served foreign nationals before. It's a much smaller portion of the referrals that we receive, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Not necessarily that it's a much smaller portion of individuals actually being victimized. We just don't see those referrals coming to us as often. What's interesting is we see, I'd probably say the average age of our adult referral is in their late 30s, but almost all of them have experienced this type of exploitation in their childhood. And there tends to be a period of time in their young adulthood where they're not engaging in support services, whether they've aged out of foster care and are trying to survive in a system that has historically failed them, and so they're trying to do it on their own and not willing to engage in a lot of services. But we see that trend, that emerging adult age, the 18 to sort of late 20s, is really our smallest referral numbers. We have seen a big trend in youth being referred to us through DCS for just being in high risk, and then after those youth receive some more in-depth training or education rather than training about what human trafficking really is, then we see them begin to identify that as an experience that they did have, where a lot of the folks come to us, they don't have that language. Like, human trafficking is such a formal legal sounding term that doesn't really is not often used in the culture and communities of the individuals that have had this experience. So oftentimes they don't identify that as something that has been part of their history until they're able to engage in some sort of education around what that really means, and then we see that increase in self-identifying. Did I answer your question? Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, thank you.
That's so strange. It's like your voice is coming right here, and yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to hear my voice come through here now, but I appreciate the presentation. I was going to ask, you mentioned there is no housing for youth and kids. Is that
So
right?
we don't, our organization does not provide housing for children and youth who've had this experience. There are programs for children and youth. There's some programs in Knoxville, and we work really collaboratively with them, and are able to often provide supplemental support so that when a youth who may be in a residential program that say lasts 45 days, when they exit that residential program, oftentimes they're not able to maintain contact with whatever therapist or case manager they had while they were in residential. And so being able to introduce them to someone that can walk that continuum with them is a way that our organization can come alongside, because we do provide that community-based service component. So a lot of times we're kind of walking alongside the folks. There are residential programs for
Okay, cool. No, I was just exploring. That was like a need for you all. Since there was a great presentation in front of us. In front of in front of the audience. If there's a need, but if you already have that as more of like a handoff, then that's cool too. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I will say for the residential programs we do have for adults, we're almost always at capacity and almost always over capacity. So our emergency receiving center every month of 2024 was over capacity. Not every single day, but every month we surpassed capacity and had someone either on a cot or on a couch for a brief period of time until some of the guests moved on to our long-term program or moved on to their next step. So that is a regular challenge that I think specific to low barrier housing, that is certainly a need, and we wish we had more capacity with our low barrier shelter, and that's to come hopefully. But that program is over capacity pretty much all the time.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too. How what is this is extremely important, right? And sometimes you don't have enough housing, how can, other people, like, maybe get involved with, capacity, funding, housing, is trying to think, like ways to kind of address that, right? So, yeah, but I kind of knew it was a challenge before he said it, so yeah, I appreciate that.
I have a question. Your funding,
Yeah, so we're about 65% grant funded and about 35% private individual donors, family foundations from the community. So we do receive funding, federal funding from the Office of Victims of Crime. We receive funding from the State of Tennessee Office of Criminal Justice Programs. And we have a variety of different, we're a United Way partner, so we have try to keep a variety of different funding streams, but the majority of our funding does come from government grants. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trudell and Ms. Davis. Thank you for the work that you do in our community. It's so important, and thank you for being here tonight to present that to us. Next up on the agenda is our public forum. I would invite Mr. Myron Thompson to the podium. He's signed up to speak tonight. Okay, so you just
did, though. Just a brief.
so you don't want to say anything. All right. Well, we will move on then. Any updates from the committee for the good of the community? If not,
I can't think of any updates right now.
okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
so move.
So moved and second. All in favor? All
Aye.
right. Thank you so much for your participation tonight.